JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon sitting down with centrist House Democrats to talk about a range of pressing economic issues. The meeting took place on Capitol Hill. Joining us now, Representative Derek Kilmer of Washington, Vice Chairman of the New Democrat Coalition. He was one of the lawmakers who met with Dimon. We've seen Congressman Jamie Dimon and other bank CEOs in front of Congress and the Senate quite a bit over the years. I can imagine this was more conciliatory yesterday. Was it confrontational at all?
It was really a discussion around three things. One, he expressed gratitude to the New Democrat Coalition for being one of the big movers in terms of getting the debt ceiling issue addressed. 95% of our members supported the bipartisan package that was negotiated by the president. And, this is one of those things where the failure to act could have catastrophic repercussions for our economy. Secondly, he talked about the fundamental strengths of our economy, the fact that we've seen substantial job growth, substantial consumer spending, and he spoke about our relative strength vis-a-vis China. And then three, he talked about some of the competitive actions he thought we ought to take as a nation, addressing things like immigration, addressing some of our workforce shortages, addressing things like permitting and regulatory reform, recognizing that we are in a global competition, and that's something that the New Democratic Coalition is really focused on.
Congressman, I don't know whether he indicated whether he preferred the bipartisan deal to a clean raise in terms of some of the some of the spending constraints, some of the COVID relief, recapturing some of those funds. Did you have to hold your nose and vote for this, or did you think that some of those things were actually positive, whether it's some of the permitting stuff? Because some of you're the centrist Democrats. There were quite a Bernie Sanders, others, AOC, that did not vote for the final product, I guess because they wanted a clean debt raise. You were okay with it or actually positive about it?
Well, here's what I'll say. I've been in Congress now for several years. It's rare that I cast a vote that I consider to be a perfect vote. Oftentimes you're in the position of holding your nose and voting yes or holding your nose and voting no. The reality is failure to act would have had catastrophic consequences to the American economy. Up to literally
Right.
Millions of jobs lost, drag on GDP. I think, frankly, there are elements of the law that was just passed that are progress, addressing some of the issues around permitting, trying to actually look at some of our long-term fiscal challenges as a nation. Frankly, and this was part of the conversation with Jamie Dimon yesterday, I think it is appropriate that we look at reforms to this conversation around the debt ceiling, because what you see time after time after time is hostage taking with a scenario where we simply cannot shoot the hostage without having real impacts to the American economy and to the American people. And so part of the discussion that we had, and Mr. Dimon didn't speak to whether he supported a clean debt ceiling. What
Right.
he said was he thought we ought to nuke it. We ought to nuke it altogether.
What about, I think he mentioned something about, just for housing was his example, about how much paperwork there was, just how cumbersome it is to try to do anything. He also said he thought that some of the issues with the regional bank, maybe some of that crisis has passed, but to take a light touch on regulation. And that also is not what we're hearing from maybe the centrist Democrats feel that way, but many in the party would like a much heavier-handed approach to both of these things. How about you?
I think the approach that the New Democratic Coalition has taken is that we have to thread the needle appropriately so that you're taking steps to protect consumers, to protect small businesses, but also making sure that there remains access to capital, that you're not stifling opportunity, that you're not stifling innovation, that you're not stifling lending. And one of the things that we spoke about specifically was the supply side challenges that we face with regard to our housing market. We need a lot more homes. Part of that conversation looked at some of the regulatory discussion, as you mentioned. We also discussed things like new market tax credits, which can provide some incentive for construction of multifamily and affordable housing. We talked about trying to address some of the regulatory barriers that exist at the local level. I am the sponsor, and the New Democrat Coalition has endorsed a bill called the Yes in My Backyard Act to try to and it's a bipartisan bill that would say, let's address some of these local issues like discriminatory land use policies and other barriers that are stifling new home construction.
I'm getting chills. You said supply side who are these new Democrats? These are really new Democrats. Did you say supply side solutions a couple times? You're in trouble.
We need a lot more homes. Our constituents need a lot more homes.
Oh, just kidding. All right, Congressman Kilmer, we appreciate your time today. Thank you. Good luck. Godspeed.
You bet.